Be obsessed. Obsession is passion plus purpose plus persistence. Be obsessed.
Hello, champions. Welcome to another episode of Champion Reads, the podcast where we jump into best-selling books by best-selling authors and talk about the principles with it. My name is William Blake, and I'm also joined here by our other executive producer, Mr. Ian Sturmer, and we're jumping into our second episode of Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone, which is one of my books that I started out with in my younger age when I first started self-development. So I'm always excited about what we're going to talk about. And today, what we're talking about is taking massive action, the energy that you need behind it and the consistency to be able to finish it out and get what you want. So let's jump into it. When I think of massive action, this whole morning I was taking care of my kids. And while I was taking care of them, I was practicing my signature speech. And while I was practicing it, one of the things in there was talking about not massive action, but immediate action. I use what I call the 2% rule. And in the 2% rule, it's to take 2% action. Your goal is 100%. And then you take 2% action to get there. Now, some people are like, well, Willie, why not 100%? Or why not 1%? Well, the 100%, if you focus on that, you go into analysis paralysis. This is where you overthink about it. You get stopped where you are. This is where the procrastinators and the perfectionists live. On the flip side, if you're just sitting in that 1%, this is where kind of the lazy individuals go because you don't get a fire under your butt enough to get out of your comfort zone to do something. And I love how that goes well with taking massive action because it's not simply about just like doing a small thing here or there, something in your comfort zone to push you a little bit, but it's more about getting uncomfortable. And if I were to put it in like, you know how you drop a stone in water and it does the ripples outward?
Yep.
It's like not staying in those first inner circles, but it's taking so much action that you're just so uncomfortable that your circle of influence and comfortability grows. So instead of it just like growing a little bit by little bit as we just like put our foot into the water of uncomfortability, it's just being like cannonball into the swimming pool and you'll be fine.
That's true. I've spent too many times with one toe in the water thinking, do I want to go more or not? And once you're in, it's not bad. But that uncomfortable start stops me more than just getting in the water and a lot of things in life. So yeah, this be obsessed, just go and do it. I find so much of my life, this is me kind of confessing here, thinking about things. Well, should I do that? Do I like that? That might work out. How can I better work on this? Personal development. Can I improve a little more, a little more, a little more? And you get into that analysis paralysis of sitting there trying to figure out everything before you actually do it. And face it, if you don't do it, it doesn't do any good. So my dad, many years ago, and this is before we had flat screen TVs and all that, he had this idea that you could get like a TV, the part that projects from a TV in a cathode ray tube, and you could just project that onto a little screen a few feet away and make a TV that would be like a 50-inch TV, which was huge back then. Now, my dad is not an electrical engineer or anything of that nature, and wouldn't couldn't actually build that, but he had that idea and never did anything with it. So the value of that idea is absolutely zero because there was never an action. He didn't even try to talk to somebody. He actually knew people who understood the science behind this, but he never did anything with it. So that's not being obsessed. And, I think my dad's way above average, but that's not even being average. And I think that's where it fits in. If you're not being obsessed about it, you're lucky to be average if you're not taking that action. And to me, that's what this book is all about. I don't want to say quit thinking, because you always need to be thinking and planning and strategizing. But it comes down to the obsession is get out there and do it. Don't look at the mountain, go climb it. I'm running out of analogies if I say this.
No, you bring up a really good point, because I think we overthink things too much, like way, way too much. I heard this quote somewhere that if it takes longer to think about it than it does to actually do the task, you're overthinking. And it's like, yeah, of course, because we try to create this perfect plan of how we're going to be able to adjust, how we're going to be able to adapt. And as we try to go forward with it, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work the way that we think. And sure, we get a little preparation in and everything. And I think that's very valuable for a lot of things. But most people, myself included, overthink what's going to happen and overthink trying to adapt in the way that they think they need to. I'll jump back to the swimming pool analogy of one day my wife and I went to her grandma's house, and they have a swimming pool in the backyard. Cousins from Montana were over that weekend, and they have their youngest, her name is Caitlin, and she is just like this daredevil of a person. So I started walking into the pool, and it was cold. I dipped my little toe in, and I'm like, oh, this is cold. So I put my feet in, stand there for a minute, then go another step, stand there for a minute. And I'm just like, oh, it's so cold. I'm just trying to adapt. But every time I go further, like the uncomfortable shock of coldness comes back. This little girl, she just like, she comes out, has a swimming suit on, just goes right into the pool and just like dives right in. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And she just starts swimming and everything. And I took a great lesson from that, is that you're going to be uncomfortable no matter what. So you might as well just get uncomfortable all the way in, because then you're going to adapt faster. And so me, who's just like doing steps every minute and just being uncomfortable for 10, 15 minutes as I do this whole process, Caitlin just jumped right in and just like maybe was uncomfortable for a minute, adjusted, and then she had the rest of the time to enjoy swimming and such. And it's amazing because our bodies are so adaptable. We're able to adapt to situations, and our minds were able to adapt to situations. But I don't think that we go in slowly, and because we go in slowly and aren't obsessed and aren't just like jumping in with massive action, I think that's why a lot of people don't go through the whole process to get to the end, and they stop at like 2%, 4%, 10%, wherever it is. I think they stop there because they're just like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. When if you just jumped fully in the first time, sure, it would have been like a complete shock, but you would have adapted really quick, and then everything after that would have just been fine.
Yeah, I was just thinking, not to keep going on the whole water thing, but
Let's
how
do
many
it.
times have I gone like into a lake or the ocean or something, and it's cold, and you're slowly going in, and then you got the waves coming, and every time the wave goes up, it hurts again and goes down, and you end up hurting the same spot over and over again because you didn't take a step further. And that adjusting until you get in the water, it's going to be painful. Until you, and whatever is already in the water is fine. By the time your belly button hurts, your knees don't bother you at all anymore because you're used to it. But if I can take that idea and move it a little bit or shift it some, I was thinking, is we're afraid to move into something, or we're planning on it. We're trying to figure out, what can go wrong? What are the things I need to worry about? Let me give you a quick analogy here. If you get a basketball and you're about to shoot it towards the basket, and you sit there and you plan on how hard you need to throw it and what angle and if there's any wind, and you go through in your mind all of these variables, and then you shoot the ball and you miss. And when you go to shoot it the second time, you don't go through all of those variables. All you do is say, oh, I was 2 inches to the left, and you shoot it again, and then you make it. We're so afraid of failing that we stop doing things, or we plan to avoid failing, when in reality, a failure will teach us so much faster what we need to do. And being able to, if you jump in the water and you realize it is simply too cold, and you get back out and get your blanket and go and have a hot shower, you've learned that it's too cold. If you start wondering, you dip a toe in, you go a little further, it might take you half an hour before you finally realize that it's actually too cold. And you spent half an hour freezing instead of a minute freezing. Being obsessed, I think, is not worrying about failure so much, and recognizing that a failure is what's going to teach you what you need to do to succeed. I think we've all been. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, if you have a thought to complete, go ahead.
I was going to say we've all failed enough times and learned from it that I don't think we even need to go through all the examples that I've done that. We'll be here another couple of podcasts.
All right, this is the 6th episode of Ian's failures.
Yeah.
No.
And we're up to 87.
Episode 87. It's crazy to think about that, because I'm thinking about my own life right now, and words come up: fail fast and fail forward. And as I think about those, I'm thinking it really isn't hard to have success. It's just that people make it hard because they're not doing the right things. Where if they did the right things, it would be a lot easier. And I think if you immersed yourself in it rather than just toe dip, there'd be a lot less pain. I have this example with my own podcast that I do. When I first started it, I told myself, oh, I'll be like everyone else, a podcast, maybe a podcast a week or an episode. And then I thought more about it, and I said, I need to just immerse myself in it, because the statistics are 90% of people won't get past episode 8. And then of the 10% that do, 90% of that won't make it past episode 21. So anyone who is in like the podcasting industry who has posted more than 21 episodes, they're already in that 1%, which is crazy because it doesn't seem like 21 episodes is that much. But statistically, yeah, it is. So I told myself I need to get to 21 as quick as I can. So I set this goal that 3 times a week I'm going to be posting episodes. And so I just immersed myself in it. And I can see the fruits of my labor. I can see the rewards that came from it. Because now it's a lot easier for me to talk. I'm able to do introductions and closings a lot easier than I did the first time. Goodness gracious. Listen to my first episode. That one was crazy. And
I'll go back and listen to it now.
Yeah. Plug my podcast. No, it's just amazing how those moments where I just jump in, immerse myself, and fail fast and fail forward, that so much more came out of it. Because I thought the best way to get the best podcast, have the right microphone, have a good camera, have special guests on, be able to say phrases the right way, like all these overthinking thoughts happened. But then once I did my first episode, and it's like, oh, maybe I'll read off a script until I'm good. So I came up with a script for my intro. Then it was the next one. It was like, oh, on my closing, don't question what you're doing. Just come up with like one commitment instead of having like 3 or 4. It's like awesome. And just like you said, Ian, it's like the first time you shoot a basketball, you got to figure out the trajectory, you got to figure out the way you move, how you let go of the ball. Like there's so much that goes into it. But once you do that first thing, it's the second one where it's just, oh, I recognize this one thing I need to change. I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
And as you go, the hardest thing is the first step. And after you go after that first step, everything else becomes easier.
It does. Yeah. It's action. And that was, I looked at reading through this book, Be Obsessed or Be Average. It's all about simply doing it, taking action. Don't overthink it. Don't listen to people who tell you you can't do it. Go and do it. Take those first steps. If you mess up, who cares? I moved from California a couple of years ago. I was living in Silicon Valley, talking to people in the industry, working through that area. And for a while, I would say it was a running joke, but it was actually true. You couldn't get hired if you hadn't been fired first. So, if somebody that wanted to start a startup, talking about having trouble saying certain things, if you wanted to start a startup, before anyone would give you money, you had to show that you had another startup that failed. If you hadn't failed, no one wanted to talk to you. No one wanted to pay attention to you. And while we joke about all the failures and everything with it, the truth is, until you've made those mistakes, you're not ready to move forward. You just don't, you learn from mistakes, and you don't make mistakes until you do something. So the first thing you need to do is go out and do something. I was listening to Gary Vee a couple of weeks ago when he was speaking. Said, he wanted to make money, so he went out and started a lemonade stand, and he went out and put up signs, and he just went out and did it. He didn't sit there and figure out the best ratio of lemon to sugar. Go do it. And if people say this is too sweet, then next batch you put less sugar in it. But you don't know what works and what doesn't until you go and do it. I don't know how many times I can just say, go do it, before I sound like a Nike commercial and people just watch that instead. But there's truth to it. Yes, you've got to learn. You've got to have the specialized knowledge. You've got to have the imagination. All of these principles we talk about from Think and Grow Rich, they all fit into that. You've got to focus and do all of these things. But one time doing it is so much more effective than hours and hours of study and daydreaming and imagining and all of that. Until you do it, you don't know. So I'm rambling here, but I wanted to throw just one last little quote I heard. So I love music, and I read articles about music and musicians I like. And I saw a quote one time. It said, writing about music is like dancing about architecture. You can write about music. You can explain, the rhythm, the chord structures. You can explain the inspiration behind things. But when you actually listen to the song, you get so much more than volumes reading about it if you never listen to it. So it's the same idea. Until you go do it, until you experience it, you'll never know. It doesn't matter how much you plan and study. And you'll never be obsessed until you start doing it. Then you get excited. Woohoo! I get the first truth bomb of the day.
You get the truth bomb. That was on fire. Yes. Absolutely. It comes down to, like, we think there's so many factors, but the factors that we focus the most on are the least important. And like you said, not that imagination, not that thinking or planning aren't important, because they absolutely are, and they have their benefits. But if you do it for long enough, then it's not like your intention isn't on doing those. Your intention's more on procrastinating on the action. And so you got to feel that intention inside. You got to think, am I actually taking the action to plan, to use imagination, to come up with the goal? Or am I now, after a little bit, my intention is to do these other things so that I don't have to take the first action? Right? There's a very definite thing, and we got to ask ourselves that real question. And I'll go out on the limb and say about 9 times out of 10, most people who are listening to this and who go through this, they already are at where they need to go to get to that next level, and they just need to start taking that first step.
Yep, guilty.
Yeah, all the time. And I want to give another example of something that I've done to like truly immerse myself. That's really like helped me go places, and it'll relate to like this fear that we might have of taking action. A couple of years back, I was writing my own book. And right at that point, I had about 22,000 words in it. I've been working on it for a year and a half. End of the year was coming up. We went to my in-laws up in Idaho for Christmas vacation. And while I was up there, I love to play Skyrim, which is like an RPG thing on the Xbox. Love to play it. Love spending hours on it in the morning before anyone else woke up. So I'd wake up at like 5 or 6 just to go down, play the Xbox on my in-laws' TV to have a few hours to just enjoy the game before everyone else woke up. At the end of the year, or towards that end of the year, before Christmas and before New Year's, I wanted to finish my book. I wanted to finish what I was working on. And I knew I still had like 22, 23,000 words to go before I felt good enough to call it finished. And so I sat there after we got to my in-laws, and I told myself there were like I'm going to play Skyrim, but I need to get this done. And so if I need to get this done, and I know I need to put that little time in so then I can be recharged and have all the rest of the family time I need with my in-laws, because everyone knows during the holidays, spending time with family, there's not much gap for like free time. So I told myself I need that time in the morning or else it's not going to happen. And so I made this commitment. I told myself I have to do it. First night came, woke up at 4 in the morning, got my laptop and started typing. Did like an hour and a half, 2 hours of work, then went on the rest of my day. Next morning, woke up and I'm like, I got this. Woke up at 4, started typing, everything was great. The next morning, it was the hardest thing to wake up. Because if you're on holiday, most people don't wake up at 4 in the morning. You are spending you're not going to bed till like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning because you're playing games, you're having fun, you're doing whatever. And so waking up at 4 in the morning each day was just taking its toll. But I made a commitment and I dove into the obsession of I need to get this book done. A week and some odd days went by. Every single morning I woke up and every single morning I did it. And by the end of when we were coming back to where we were at, I had finished with 45,000 words. Double. Nice. It took me 10 days to do what I did a year and a half before. Because a year and a half that it took me to get that first portion, I was toe dipping. 10 days in which I was able to get that second half, I was immersing myself. And so one of the many lessons I learned from that is what we've been talking about. Jump in, immerse yourself, and then you'll be able to learn and grow. And that is a lot faster and has a lot less pain than if you freaking just toe dip.
Yeah, toe dipping, that's not obsession. There's a great Confucius saying that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Or I think Ben Franklin was little strokes fell great oaks. And yeah, it's great. You need to do the first little step. You need to understand that, routines and things will build it. But if you want to get something done, you have to be obsessed. You have to jump in and do it and get over whatever fear that's there. Whether it's a inadequacy, whether it's fear of failure, whether it's, feeling like you don't know enough about it, or, none of that matters if you don't do it. So go and do it. Be obsessed. I started out in saying passion and purpose and persistence. You got to have a passion with it. If you don't have a passion in life, we've all known people like that. They have nothing they're really interested in. And as a result, we don't really want to hang around with them that much because there's nothing to talk about.
Or they're interested and they're just not doing anything. And it gives off that same vibe.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to fix that car in the garage. I'm going to restore that Mustang. It's a 56 Mustang, and then I bought it in 57 and I still haven't done it. Actually, I have to quick joke about that. I was looking at houses a while ago, looking for investment property, and I saw this house built in like 1908 with an unfinished basement. And it's over 100 years and they haven't finished the basement yet. How can, no one's ever finished the basement in 100 years. But somebody will buy it and go down there and finish it, and they'll have a great room in there. Until you get excited, until you jump in and do something. This podcast, for years, I said I wanted to do a podcast. I didn't do anything with it until I found the right people, the wonderful William Blake being a prime example of that. And now I can do this. Now I'm part of a podcast. Now I can say, I get excited about it because it's being done. I'm just repeating over and over again, go do it, go do it, go do it. That's the obsession. But until that happens, nothing else is ever going to happen in your life. I say, you can't just sit there and wait for your ship to come in. And I think I've said this before on this podcast. I'll do it one more time, though, because Willie and I are both here in Utah, and the closest ocean's like 1,000 miles away. So if we're waiting for a ship to come in, it's not going to get here. There's no ocean for a ship to be in. You want your ship to come in, at the very least, you got to go to where a ship is. It's going to take action. It's going to take a desire to do it, fuel that desire, just build it up. And maybe that's where the imagination comes in, is imagine that success. Imagine achieving that thing, whether it's finishing a book you're writing, starting a business, making an invention, playing the piano, losing weight. Get excited about it. Just imagine yourself doing that, crossing that finish line, and feel all of that excitement so that you have no choice but to go do it. You get so excited you can't help yourself but go work on it and achieve it. And if it fails, then you're even more motivated, more just passionate to get it right, to fix those flaws and make the correct one. Just be so full of passion that you have no choice but to go and do it. To me, that's obsession.
100%. That is obsession. To be able to just want it so bad that it doesn't matter what's in your way. You just go and do it. Like that's, I love this book. A lot of people diss on Grant for like some things that he does and whatnot, but like this is so crucial in just wanting to get what you want, because you can redirect obsessions that you have with bad things and redirect them into good things. How do you do that? You simply take the thing that you want and you take the thing that you don't want. You spend a little bit more time on the thing you want, a little less on the thing you don't want. And by simply switching that energy, changing that format into the things that you struggle with, maybe it's taking action, maybe it's being positive, maybe it's even worse, like pornography or something. But taking that energy and spending a little less time with it, more time on the thing that you want, you transfer that energy, you transfer that the process and that progression into something better. And as you transform yourself and then transform the energy, that's when the obsession comes in. That's when you're able to go forward and get what you want. And as we wrap up our thoughts, like, this is my final thought to you guys, is to go and just be obsessed about something. Start diving deep into it. At the beginning, you're going to learn about a bunch of bad things, because that's just what we do when we learn. We learn a bunch of bad things that happen when we take action. But there's the good as well. And as you keep diving into it, you'll start learning that the good overweighs the bad. And then as you keep going, you realize this is actually pretty exciting. Keep that obsession, keep that energy, keep going forward, because that's what's going to create the consistency and the ability to get to where you need to go. What are your final thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, I'm going to go off of something you said earlier there. The fact is, all of us are obsessed. All of us have a passion with something. And it might be something bad. It might be, you said, pornography. It might be alcohol or drugs. It could be anything. It might be something good. But we all have something that we're obsessed with. If you think you don't eat anything when you get up tomorrow morning. And at 9 o'clock at night, see if you're not obsessed as you stand outside the Haagen-Dazs shop. You'll feel obsessed. You'll feel passionate that you really want that ice cream when you're starving. We all have that within us. Don't think that we don't care about anything. We all have something we're obsessed about, even if it's not anything practical or beneficial. But you said, start there, and we can move that to the positive things. Once we know we have passion, we know we have obsession on something, now let's find the right way to move it. So I'll just finish with that. Be passionate. Don't do drugs, but be passionate. That's the start of success, is having that passion first.
What a way to end it. And that ends this episode of Champion Reads. If you found inspiration in it, go ahead and subscribe and message us on our social media platforms. You can find us on all social medias at My Champion Circle. And I want you to message us what inspiration you got from this today. And until next time, champions, continue to be obsessed with your goals, continue to take consistent action, dive into the deep end, because once you immerse yourself, it's a lot less painful than if you toe dip. So go ahead and start taking that action. We'll see you next time, champions.
Thank you.